Okay, slut. I'm gonna film this right now before I have a shower. Since it's still hot on my mind, still fresh off the dome. It's cold outside, man. Okay. Going ghost versus filming your come up. I think a lot of people I think the idea of not talking about your plans and doing everything in silence is really cool. Like, that's pretty much what everybody wants to do, right? Is like get really successful while you're, really early, and don't tell anybody about it, and just post a TikTok of you getting on a jet or whatever. I think that would be fucking sick. But the reality is, and this ties back into people making content, is if you're gonna wait till the perfect moment to make content, most of the time, I was gonna say it's probably never gonna be perfect, but you'll get there someday. The reality is it's probably gonna be a while until it's exactly perfect. Even if you're getting a jet or whatever, you're still gonna have some things that you don't necessarily like. Maybe the way you talk isn't perfectly, like, you're not comfortable with your content yet. So there's so many things where, you want it to be perfect and you're gonna wait for that perfect moment, but it's not gonna be when you think it is. It's gonna be a lot further. So you kind of have a bit of a trade-off. You can either, work in silence and just kind of go ghost, as they say, and just work out without telling anybody, or like film your come up. And there's kind of a saying that, or a quote, you should live every day like there's a film crew following you, documenting your success. And I think that's super powerful, because if you imagine that, if you imagine people are following you and you're trying to get super successful and like make a lot of money or whatever the deal is, maybe it's fitness, maybe you want to become a bodybuilder and get absolutely shredded and go on gear and fucking, be on TRT for the rest of your life. But if that's your goal, you do you. It's like there's a trade-off. So you can either, I think, I finally made the decision. I'm like, I got to make this content. Even if the content isn't what you want it to be, that little bit of effort and the little bit of vulnerability it's going to take for you to make that content, the benefits outweigh that. The benefits you're getting from it, you're getting speaking practice, like public speaking practice. You're growing your account. You're figuring out what kind of content you like making. There's so many benefits. Like, just practice is a really big one. And, everything is about the pros and cons, right? Like, literally all you have to do, you're trading a little bit of time, so you're a little bit of effort to make content, and a little bit of vulnerability it's going to take for you to make maybe bad content, or like something that's not perfect, that might make you think you're sacrificing your perfect self-image. But really, that perfect self-image is no image, because you don't put any content out, right? So you really gotta, like, I think it's totally worth it. Practice, speaking practice, figuring out what kind of content you want, growing your accounts. And it's something to look back on as well. So once you're really successful, people are going to say, where did you come from? You really, daddy's money or whatever. Where if you have something like this, people will look back and say, hey, this guy started from nothing, but this is how much effort he put in. And I think it's really important, like something that, people say be humble and shit. And like, obviously you can't be really egotistical. Like I was talking about, was it yesterday or the day before, is like egotistical about yourself, but don't shout about it. Like, you can think of yourself, like, be super confident in your own ideas, but don't go telling everybody that you're the best or whatever. I don't know. It's a really gray area, like a really fine line to where it's too much of yourself and not enough of the confidence in yourself. You just got to have that bit of self-image and kind of protect your self-image as well. But I don't know, I was trying to get to the point there, but I kind of forgot what I was talking about. Um, yeah, you know, I'm just sweating like crazy. What I was gonna say was you don't want to like brag a lot because you don't want to make yourself look really egotistical, but at the same time, you have to tell people about your accomplishments or they'll never be realized. Let that sink in. If you never tell people about your compliments, you will never get, they will never be realized, and you'll never get, they won't be acknowledged. You won't get recognized for them. And not that you're looking for recognition as attention, because that's a little bit different. That's kind of I wouldn't say it's maybe partially insecurity, but if you're looking for attention, that's kind of the wrong intent when you're applying this concept. It's, in life in general, like status, for me, I'm a great example because I'm at a point where I don't have a lot of achievements yet because I've been working, I've been learning, I've been trying things, having lots of failures. And if you know anything about like being successful, you got to have a lot of failures first, right? Like, how many failures? You got to fail 20 times before you succeed once or something like that. At a good rate. Obviously, you could study all your life and maybe get it right the first time or for a long period of time, but the reality is that you learn way faster through experience, and that experience is failure. So tell people about your accomplishments. So for me, that would be, getting up really early in the morning, working out, spending how many hours a day learning, spending how many hours a day working on this, a specific business or the specific idea, regardless of whether it fails or not. If I didn't tell anybody about that, nobody would know. From that point of view, for those of you who know me, I was in a tough situation where I couldn't, I had to move out. I didn't end up finishing school, but from that perspective, if nobody knew the positive things that I'm doing, you'd think I'm a drug dealer or some shit, you know what I mean? So it's like, I wouldn't say brag, but you have to tell people about your accomplishments. And this was part of my motivation behind making the series is like, first of all, to look back on. So if let's say I start a coaching or consulting thing in the future, like maybe like I don't want to say a course to make a lot of money because there's so many people doing that. Like I don't want to be a infopreneur or a guru that's trying to sell a course, but if people are following you for a long time and you're super successful, people are going to want to know how you did it and how to be successful themselves. So there's always the opportunity for me to do that in the future. But if you're going to do something like that, people want to look back and be like, where did this guy come from? Is he legitimate? And that's a really good thing to look back on. And that kind of solidifies my point where if I didn't make this, nobody would know what I did. If I didn't tell people my accomplishments through my YouTube videos, like working out and trying all these different things and not giving up and the amount of discipline, it's like nobody would know. For all people know, I could be daddy's money. And I wouldn't say that comes from pride or ego either. It's not like I'm trying to prove a point that I made it all myself, because I think that's what a lot of people get wrong. You shouldn't be proving anything to anybody else. It should just be proving to yourself. Because a lot of people do that, right? They're like, this isn't daddy's money. Oh, I'll show you the receipts. It's all about proving and I want to say protecting your ego or pride, but that's probably not the right composition of words. But you should do it for a different benefit. Maybe it's self-image in general, or like in the context of the example that I was giving, showing people that what you say about yourself is true and that you didn't come from daddy's money, and that validates your concepts inside your course or your ability to provide a mentorship or whatever it is, right? So coming back to kind of the main concept of today's topic of like going ghost on your coming up or your success versus making content. And it doesn't have to be like just making money. It could be creating car content on TikTok. A lot of people, like, even I was talking to my barber and he wants to start making a ton of like car content on TikTok or Instagram, and he just like same exact thing that I was telling him about. He's like, you know, I know you want to wait until everything's perfect, but it's never going to come, and you just got to balance weigh the odds. And he said, yeah, I totally agree. That's exactly how I feel. So it's like, I'm sure a lot of other people go through the same thing. So, you can go in silence and not say anything, or that little bit of effort to make the content, maybe a little bit of skill you have to learn to do certain things, but it's really not that hard. You can literally use iMovie to make, or CapCut to make videos if you don't want to get super advanced. Usually don't need anything else unless you're producing like really long YouTube videos. You're sacrificing a little bit of effort, a little bit of vulnerability for how many benefits? Practice, growth, social media account growth, finding out what kind of content you want to do, telling people about your accomplishments, which is really important, as we discussed, because if you don't tell people about what you're doing, nobody will know. And that can be fueled by how many other, different intents. It doesn't have to be pride or ego. It could be the success of your future venture that relies on your reputation. I wonder if I still have my, what else? Something to look back on. So, I don't know. Figure out what you want to do. Doesn't really matter. It's your life. Do what you want. But that's my advice. That's why I think the majority of people, unless you're in a really shitty situation where, I don't know, something about you is making your self-image so bad, or something about your situation is like making what your content would be so bad that it would ruin your reputation in the future. But I can't even think of any examples. Like, even if you're homeless, if you're living on the street, you could start doing vlogs, and who knows, maybe you blow up and it turns into a huge success story. Like, look at just a quick example off my head, the Stradman. I think it's the Stradman. I don't actually watch his channel. I've just seen a few clips, but he would sit on the corner in his Pontiac or whatever, in his car, and just film like really expensive cars. And one day one of his videos, like, he was homeless, he was sleeping in his car. One day one of his videos blew up, and I think it was either from his merch store or ad revenue, but he just made a shit ton of money, and that was like his success story overnight. Now, obviously you can't count on that, because you're relying on algorithms and other people's, I would call it luck. I know it's not really luck, because if you know how the algorithm, I would call it luck, because you don't know how the algorithm works. If you did, it probably wouldn't be luck, if you could figure that out. But most people don't. I don't think anybody does. TikTok, social media companies don't disclose how they distribute their content. So regardless, though, I don't think there's really any detriment to creating content. But that's my 2 cents. Take a risk, live life. Tomorrow might never come. So be bold, create your reality, and just live life. Like, there's actually I have a poster on my wall. The biggest risk is not taking one. You don't want to take risks. Stay in your 9 to 5 for the rest of your life. Even a job is insecurity. What if the business goes out of business? Then you have no job, right? Like, Or what if a major recession hits and you're in a, not a food business. I think a food business would do really well in a, like a world problem, COVID. I don't know, I shouldn't say that word actually. Might get demonetized, but some business that wouldn't do really well, you know, you might get losses, they might get laid off. So, end of the day, just take a risk, do things you're not comfortable with, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and you know, good things will come to you. So